And Amy, so the Democrats have had a tumultuous relationship with Jim Comey. First, they were in deep love and admiration after he cleared Hillary Clinton, essentially announcing he would not refer her for criminal charges last summer. Listen to some of the leading lights of the left on Comey then.
There was an extensive, as you know, Brett, investigation by the FBI under the direction of a wonderful and tough career public servant, Jim Comey. He's somebody with the highest standards of integrity.
I think Director Comey could not have been more exhaustive.
I am grateful for the professionalism of the FBI and the Department of Justice.
This is a great man. We are very privileged in our country to have him be the director of the FBI.
No one can question the integrity, the competence.
I don't know whether your family's watching this, but I hope that they are as proud of you as I am.
Oh, a tearful moment.
That, yeah.
And the penultimate voice you heard there, Harry Reid, he changed his tune about questioning Jim Comey's integrity, shockingly, after the election.
Well, it's obvious he was a partisan in all this.
Comey.
Yeah, part of Comey, yes. It's obvious. There's information out there. He had it, I'm confident, and he ignored it. And we know from other reports we've seen from all you guys, there were reports in the people in the campaign for Donald Trump were in touch with the Russians. And now it's very clear. One of the biggest mysteries that people think exists, why didn't he do something? No, there's no mystery to me.
So he went from a person whose integrity is beyond reproach to a partisan Manchurian operative for the Putin regime.
But one thing that President Trump and then candidate Trump did, he never publicly criticized Comey or the FBI. He always praised them.
And I have to give the FBI credit. It took guts for Director Comey to make the move that he made in light of the kind of opposition he had, where they're trying to protect her from criminal prosecution. Good job by the FBI. I have respect that the FBI has given it a second chance. I really disagreed with him. I was not his fan, but I'll tell you what he did, he brought back his reputation.
Well, you
Yes,
could see. I mean,
so
politically, he might have helped Donald Trump during the candidacy, during the campaign process.
well, he hurt him, then helped him. The point is this: both sides play politics, where they celebrate a decision they like and they run down a decision they don't like. I get that, but here's what the left has to defend and explain if they want to term this as they were yesterday, hair on fire and running around like chickens without necks, that this is Nixonian, that this is him picking the individuals who will investigate him and his associates.
Or even one congressman was saying it's an obstruction of justice.
So the Deputy Attorney General is a gentleman that you just confirmed 94-6, U.S. Senate. That necessarily means a lot of Democrats. Who Sally Yates, the newly minted feminist heroine, said on Monday in her testimony she has full confidence in can oversee this investigation into Russian collusion, thus obviating the need for a special prosecutor. And the acting FBI director is a longtime friend of John Podesta, Hillary Clinton campaign chairman, whose wife was backed by Democrat Virginia Governor Terry McAuliffe, a former DNC chairman under the Clintons, when she ran for state senate. Okay, but these people are all compromised. Without Jim Comey, you'll never get justice. From the same people who said we didn't get justice from Jim Comey when he reopened the investigation into Hillary Clinton emails 10 days out after discovering the UMA transfer of emails to Weiner. It's a lot to make out, which is why we try and focus on the important substantive things that transcend the vagaries of partisan politics, because the partisan politics just get so boring, don't they? For more on the substantive piece of this, we're pleased to be joined again by our friend, former federal prosecutor, also a friend of Jim Comey, and contributing editor at National Review, who's written extensively through the annals on this topic, and he's got a great piece in National Review at nationalreview.com today, The Bipartisan Case Against Jim Comey. Andy McCarthy joins us now. Andy, thanks for being with us.
Dan, Amy, how are you?
Good. So, the bipartisan case against Jim Comey, Counselor, the floor is yours.
Well, I'm just really describing the memorandum that the Deputy Attorney General put together, which was the basis, according to what the Attorney General and the President said, for removing Director Comey. And interestingly, that memorandum pretty much adopts the Democrat critique of Comey, which sort of casts Mrs. Clinton as the victim. There's no hint in the memorandum of the Republican critique, which has been, that she should have been prosecuted, or that the steps that were taken, like the grants of immunity and the like, have essentially made it impossible to prosecute an otherwise meritorious case. Instead, they really go with the Democrat critique, which has been about Comey outside the normal protocols of law enforcement, going public with a description of the evidence in a case that wasn't charged. And they do this through the mouths, as it were, of a bipartisan array of high-ranking law enforcement officials, including Eric Holder and Jamie Gorelick, the former Attorney General for Obama and Deputy Attorney General for Clinton. So I think the way that Rosenstein, the Deputy Attorney General for Trump, put together this memo and the way he crafted it gave a very small target for Democrats to complain, because basically he's using their rationale for why he thought the director should be removed. And other than President Trump, who sort of gratuitously throws into the mix in the cover letter, the fact that Comey allegedly told him 3 times that he was not under investigation. There's nothing in there of the Republican case or any kind of Trump complaint personally about Comey. So I think, given, as you point out in the clips that you played at the beginning here, that the politicians seem to shift with the political wind. No one's going to pay too much attention to their latest blowhard routine, because it'll be undermined by what they were saying 5 minutes ago. I think Rosenstein's memo will basically hold up as a pretty good explanation for why they did what they did.
Yeah. So, do you think Comey was a liability? Had he lost the trust in the American people? And why now for his firing?
I don't think he. I think that, unfortunately, this one case kind of towers over everything about the position of director of FBI in the public mind. But I don't think people were exactly, out in the streets demanding that Comey be removed over this case. There's a lot of people who disagree with his assessment of it. I'm one of them. And at the same time, who knew that, given the extensive responsibilities of the FBI director and the masterful way that Comey performed most of them, I don't think there were a lot of people who were demanding that he be removed. And I think if he hadn't been, we would have just kind of tootled along like we've been going along. I also think, the president has a right to remove people. Everybody in the executive branch answers to the president. And that's why he's able to come in, for example, and replace all of the sitting U.S. attorneys in the 94 districts across the country and put his own people in. I think if he was going to remove the attorney general or the FBI director, it would have been better tactically for him to have done it in the course of the new broom sweeping clean. And I think by delaying, you set up for the other side the argument that there's some particular thing he's removing Comey over. And obviously here, the Democrats will say it's the Russia investigation. But I just think that, as you guys have pointed out, what the politicians have said have been so all over the lot. Who's going to listen to them about this anymore?
Well, and so Krauthammer said yesterday that the timing of this is inexplicable. He doesn't buy the argument that was in the Deputy Attorney General's letter that this is about his handling of the Hillary Clinton email investigation and that press conference he had. Susan Collins, senator from Maine, explained that Well, the timing of this is Rosenstein just got confirmed and ascended to deputy AG a couple of weeks ago, and so it took time to get Sessions confirmed. It took time to get Rosenstein in place, and so it took some time. And now, as they're reviewing the personnel for whom they exercise oversight, this decision was made per, it seems, the desire of Rosenstein to make a change. Is that where are you? Are you with kind of inexplicable with Krauthammer, or is what Collins and others have laid out plausible to you?
I think the timing thing is way overstated. I mean, I imagine when something like this happens, people are going to sue over why did it happen now as opposed to when. I think there's a lot to the idea that a lot of these people just got in place. I think one thing that's been missing from the discussion is the director testified last week in a hearing where we've now been told that the FBI and the Justice Department have to come back and correct his testimony because evidently he made some statements that turn out to be inaccurate about the case against was it Huma Abedin.
Right.
So they're in a situation where he's on his heels a little bit, which is unusual for Director Comey, in that they got to go back and say, I was wrong, and it turns out that what he was wrong about was respectfully something he shouldn't have been doing in the first place, which is commenting on the evidence in an uncharged case, which has really been what the complaint has been all along. So I think it may have factored in that they're in a situation where they actually have to now go back and say that, he gave incorrect testimony last week, and they may have figured that, that made it more of a propitious time.
The facts are paramount.
I just tend to think that what we understand so far about the way the Trump administration operates, there's different camps pulling in different directions, and sometimes it seems like it takes the president a while to make up his mind because his closest advisors are obviously pulling him in different directions, and there's just until they get their legs under them, which may take a year for all we know. The decision-making process in the White House is not what I'd call a well-oiled machine, and I think they just, you do things. They have a lot on their plate, and they get to things when they get to things. But I don't see anything nefarious in the timing here. I really don't.
With respect to Comey and his tenure, Wall Street Journal opining this morning, among other things, saying he is political in precisely the way we don't want a leader of America's premier law enforcement agency to behave. And they're pointing to a number of things, including statements, not just the fact that he broke protocol to have a press conference, but testimony before congressional committees, which is attendant to his position. But when he makes statements like he made about the Russian collusion matter, like Putin doesn't like Hillary. Well, what kind of law enforcement statement is that? That's a political opinion or political analysis, which, oh, by the way,
Kathy.
by the way, people who actually know the geopolitics of Russia a lot better than he does disagree with. So, I mean, it's that kind of stuff that, to me, at least for me, undermine Comey's credibility as the director of that agency.
Well, I think he looks at things like a prosecutor, and I agree with what you're saying about the intelligence and geopolitical aspects of making judgments like that. At the same time, if you've tried a lot of cases, and Jim has tried a lot of cases, a lot of times the reason people commit crime is because they're motivated by, dislike of other people. It's not altogether that unusual to render judgments like that because it actually is the motive for a lot of what you end up proving in court. So I'm sure at the time he didn't think what he was saying, in the greater scheme of things, when he was talking about a lot of stuff that he probably oughtn't have.
And last question for you. The way it was handled, I mean, President Trump wrote a letter, sent it over to the FBI headquarters in D.C. when James Comey was in L.A. at the field office and found out by watching a television monitor that he was fired. How do you think that went?
I think they could have figured out a better way to do it. I really hope that that's not the way it happened. But, you'd like to think that he got a call from the Attorney General and they spoke personally. But, I don't have any knowledge of that, and I don't want to weigh in on something I don't I don't know about. I sure hope that they found a better way to do it than what I've seen reported.
He is Andy McCarthy, former federal prosecutor, assistant U.S. attorney in Manhattan, also contributing editor, National Review. His piece out today, a distillation of the memorandum issued by Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein on the issue of Comey's termination, the bipartisan case against James Comey. You can find it at nationalreview.com. Andy, thanks as always for joining us. Appreciate it.
And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.